In previous days, Sayadaw explained that when concept paṇḍitā prevails, the defilements arise. And Sayadaw explained from theoretical and practical aspects. By being mindful of the nama rupa that are arising at present moment, one can discern correctly. One should be mindful of the nama rupa that are arising at the present moment in order to discern. According to the teaching of the Buddha, if the person is not mindful of the objects at the moment they arise, paṇḍitā concept will prevail. The person will take as person, being, man, woman, hand, feet, that the person is not mindful of. So, ordinary person will have this concept of man, woman, person, being. In the sadhana field, if one does not know the correct method of satipatthana practice, the person will have these defilements. The defilements will be relentless to the person who is not mindful. To the person who is not mindful, the shape concept of person, being, hand, feet arises, and also akara paṇḍitā, manner concept arise, not seeing the true nature. Not mindful of the object, the person does not discern. There will be avijja, ignorance, the moha, delusion arises. Avijja, ignorance, not knowing correctly, knowing wrongly. And also the mind will be deviated. As the mind is deviated, the person commits wrongdoing by body and speech. There will be wrongful conduct by body and speech. At times when there is attention, good attention, manasikara, yonito manasikara, then there can be some wholesome deeds. But such wholesome deeds are vattakami kusala, the wholesome deeds that lead to further assistances. Even though some wholesome deeds may arise, they are not as significant as they are done with avijja, ignorance. When there are concepts of person, being, and so on, the defilements arise. Not discerning correctly, there will be attachment, craving, clinging, and thus there will be kamma bhava. So based on these defilements, wholesome and unwholesome deeds are done. Wholesome and unwholesome deeds, they pass away, but they leave the potency to give resultant. So the wholesome and unwholesome deeds leave the potency in the person who perform these deeds, so that the potency of these deeds will bring results. Sayadaw gives the example of a tree. So on the earth there are many species of trees, and also there are many nationality or races of people. In the example, a person is compared to a tree. Kilesavata, the round of defilements, are compared to the sap, the moisture of the tree. Kamavata, the round of good and bad deeds, are compared to the seed of the tree. As good and bad deeds are done, these good and bad deeds bring results, and there will be Vipakavata, round of resultants. Vipakavata, round of resultants, are compared to the new tree. So the new tree will arise from the sprout until it grows big. The pleasure, human pleasure, divine pleasure that generates the defilements to arise are compared to the nutriments for the plant in the soil, water, fertilizer, oxygen, and the sun. So the nutriments from the soil, water, fertilizer, air, and the sun will generate the sap in the tree. And having the sap in the tree will give seeds, and the seeds will generate a new tree. As yogi, the Vipassana practice of a yogi is compared to the killing of the tree. So in this way, yogis can compare this example. In a chart, the defilements are compared to the sap of the tree. The Kamavata, the round of good and bad deeds, are compared to the seed. Vipaka, the resultants, are compared to the new tree. The human pleasure, the worldly, human and divine pleasure that generate the defilements are compared to the nutriments for the plant from the soil, water, oxygen, fertilizer, sun. And the Vipassana practice of the yogi is compared to the killing action of the tree. If the tree is to be killed, then the nutriments from the soil, water should be cut. So the nutriment that goes through the root should be cut in order to kill the tree. If the person does not know the flaws of existences, and especially if the person does not know the flaws of defilements, the person will think of them as good. Not knowing the flaws of kilesa defilements is moha, delusion. In other words, avidya, ignorance. Not knowing correctly, not knowing the flaws of defilements, one will think of them as good. Based on the things, the objects, the person see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, there will be feeling based on good things to be seen, to be heard, to be tasted, to be smelled, to be touched. there will be pleasant feeling. And if there are unpleasant things to be seen, to be heard, to be smelled, to be tasted, to be touched, there will be unpleasant feeling. And there can also be neutral feeling when the things are neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Whatever object that come into contact at the sixth sense door, there will produce feeling. Based on the good deeds that were done in the past, as a result of good deeds, there will be good things to be seen, to be heard, to be smelled, to be tasted, to be touched. And based on the bad deeds done in the past, there will be bad results. There will be bad objects to be seen, to be heard, and so on, as a result of the bad deeds. And also there are neutral feelings based on neutral objects to be seen, to be heard, and so on. Concerning with seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and knowing, if the person is not mindful at the moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and knowing, not being mindful, there will be knowing wrongly, and there will be craving, clinging, and there will be these defilements arising. If there is good things to be seen, the person will even want better things to be seen. In this way, there will be craving for better things. If there are unpleasant objects, the person will crave for good objects. If there is good feeling, the person will want better feeling. If there is unpleasant feeling, the person will crave for good feeling. And because neutral feeling is taken as good, the person will crave onto the neutral feeling, wanting to be calm and steady. In this way, craving can arise based on neutral feeling. So, because of Vedana, feeling, craving arises. So craving can arise based on feeling. By being mindful at the moment the nama rupa are arising, by discerning the nama rupa correctly, ignorance will be removed. Because of ignorance, craving arises. And when the person discerns, there will not be ignorance and there will not be craving and clinging. By being mindful of the nama rupa, discerning the nama rupa, one removes the wrong view of person, being, jiva, atta, the living soul. By being mindful of the nama rupa, by discerning correctly, one removes the wrong view. One will also remove the wrong view, causeless view, fictitious cause view, when the person discerns cause and effect. So in this way, one is removing avijja, tasna, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging, by discerning correctly, by being mindful. So in this way, the wholesomeness is vivata, meaning stopping the round. So stopping the round is called vivata, and the wholesomeness by discerning will be vivata kusala, the wholesomeness that is stopping the round. Not being mindful of the nama rupa that are arising at the sixth sense door, there will be delusion. Not knowing correctly, there will be delusion. Moha and avijja, delusion and ignorance, are synonymous. Not mindful at the moment of arising, there will be delusion and ignorance. By being mindful of the presently arising object, by being mindful of the nama rupa that are arising at the present moment, the mind will be free from lobha, greed. The mind will be free from dosa, anger, hatred, aversion. The mind will be free from delusion, moha. So instead of avijja, ignorance, there will be vijja, knowledge, by discerning, by being mindful. And there will be amoha, non-delusion. So in order to develop the mind, amoha, non-delusion, plays the important role. Discerning the nama rupa, there will be amoha, non-delusion. Discerning cause and effect, there will be amoha, non-delusion. And discerning the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self, amoha, non-delusion, arises. So in this way, there will not be lobha, greed, there will not be hatred, aversion, there will not be moha, delusion, by discerning correctly. And there will not be craving, clinging. There will not be anger, hatred, delusion. And instead, there will be alobha, adosa, and amoha, non-greed, non-anger, non-delusion. Based on karma, good and bad deeds, there will be more assistance. When a tree is to be killed, by cutting the root, the tree can no longer absorb the nutrition from soil or water, and also the leaves cannot absorb oxygen. So if the root is to be cut, the tree will become dry. The tree will no longer absorb nutrition from the soil or from water, and the tree dies, as it can no longer absorb nutrition, and thus the tree cannot generate the new generation of trees. Amoha, non-delusion, is very important in developing the mind and the knowledge. By noting the object with effort, viriya, sati, and samadhi, effort, mindfulness, concentration will become strengthened. Delusion will be removed. When the delusion is removed, there will be amoha, non-delusion, and the mind and the knowledge will be developed. Because of amoha, non-delusion, the mind and the knowledge will be developed. In place of lobha, dosa and moha, greed, anger and delusion, alobha, adosa and amoha, non-greed, non-anger, non-delusion will arise. So in this way, lobha, dosa, moha will be replaced by alobha, adosa and amoha. When the tree can no longer absorb the nutriment from the soil, water and so on, the tree will become dry. The sap of the tree will become dry. The dry tree can no longer give fruit, and there will not be any seed. With no seed, there will not be new trees. So in this way, if the person removes the sap of lobha, dosa, moha, when the person removes the sap of defilement, then there will not be kamavata, there will not be the round of good and bad deeds that are compared to the fruit. If there is no fruit, there will not be any seed, and thus the new tree cannot arise. So by removing the defilements that are removed, and thus there will not be new good and bad deeds that generate more assistance. Not being mindful at the moment the object arises, there will be paññatti concept. When paññatti concept prevails, the defilements arise. Not being mindful of the nama rupa that are arising at the present moment, there can be craving, there will be avijja, ignorance, craving, and clinging. Whatever object that arises at the sixth sense door, one should be mindful. The seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, they are neither wholesome nor unwholesome. Seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, they are the resultants. And the Vedana, the feeling that arises, is also the resultant. It is very important not to add new cause on the resultant. So one should be mindful at the moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, knowing by the practice of satipatthana, so that one will not be adding new causes to the resultant. The feeling, seeing, hearing, and also the feeling that arises, they are the resultant. Not being mindful, the person will take them as good. There will be delusion, moha. There will be ignorance, and the person will crave onto these objects, and also there will be clinging. Not being mindful, the person will think of these objects as good and pleasant. Not knowing correctly, there will be avijja, ignorance, and based on ignorance, the person will take of these seeing, hearing as pleasant, and there will be craving. And the person will crave for better and better things, and it will lead to clinging. And in this way, the set of avijja, tasna, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging will generate. Greed, lobha, is the root of unwholesomeness. Delusion is also the root of unwholesomeness. Dosa, anger, aversion, is also the root of unwholesomeness. So these lobha, dosa, moha are the root of unwholesomeness, and such unwholesomeness will generate resultants. Because of bad volition consisted in the unwholesomeness, such bad volition will lead to bad resultants. By being mindful of the object at the present moment, viriya, sati and samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration will develop. The person will discern nama and rupa, cause and effect, impermanent suffering and non-self. Discerning nama, rupa, cause and effect, impermanent suffering and non-self, knowledge arises. When knowledge arises, delusion, ignorance will be removed. Discerning correctly, one removes ignorance. When ignorance is removed, tasna, craving, will also be removed. And when tasna is removed, clinging, grasping, will also be removed. So in this way, discerning, one develops knowledge. By developing knowledge, ignorance is removed, craving cannot arise, clinging cannot arise. In this way, avijja, tasna and upadana, ignorance, craving and clinging will dry out. Having amoha, alobha and adosa, they are the root of wholesomeness. And having these roots, alobha, adosa and amoha, the wholesome mind of bhavana, the wholesome mind of mental development will arise. And this bhavana kusala removes gross, medium and refined form of defilement. If there is lack of mindfulness, the defilements, lobha, dosa and moha, have chance to arise. By being mindful, knowledge arises, alobha, adosa, amoha arises. By being mindful, when knowledge arises, there will be alobha, adosa and amoha, non-greed, non-aversion, non-delusion, and thus the unwholesomeness that has the root of lobha, dosa, moha will be removed. When these are removed, there will not be unwholesome deeds. There are no unwholesome deeds, and thus the new assistances will also be cut. So in this way, by being mindful, the person is developing bhavana kusala that is causing the person to be free from assistances. Cutting the defilement set, there will not be deeds that lead to further assistances. Having no sap in the tree cannot give fruit, the tree cannot give seed. By cutting the defilement, the deeds that lead to further assistances will no longer arise. When there are no wholesome and unwholesome deeds that lead to further existences cannot arise, there will not be more resultant. So in this way, by cutting the round of defilements, the round of deeds will also be cut, and thus the round of vipaka, resultants, will also be cut. At the moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, which are the resultants, one should be mindful of these objects so that one will not be adding the new causes. By being mindful at the moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and knowing, new causes will not arise, and thus the resultants can no longer arise. And Sayadaw will continue to explain tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu.